Oh, autofocus. There we go. Okay. The Incredibles 2 came out. I saw it yesterday. Let's talk about it. So, The Incredibles 1 was this movie that I have a lot of nostalgia for because it was the first Disney Pixar movie that I saw in theaters and sat all the way through. Finding Nemo I went and saw, but I was young and I was scared of the sharks in the shark scene when they're like, fish are friends, not food, in the chase scene. I was like, oh no, the sharks are going to get me. And so I left with my parents, which is, it was all good. I saw it with my dad. I saw it with my dad, and then we left, and then we went to some restaurant. We went with my dad and grandma, and my grandma was at this restaurant, and she ordered something and got something completely different. It's a fun, nostalgic story. Anyway, so either way, I have a lot of nostalgia for The Incredibles because it's the first Pixar movie I saw all the way through, saw it in theaters, and it was a good time. Loved the movie, great stuff, but one of the interesting things that sort of primed me to go into the sequel, I'm going to talk about this real quick because I'm just throwing ideas out there, and this might eventually turn into a video on the main channel, but this is video, because basically I saw Spectrum Pulse's video on Incredibles 2, but I didn't watch all the way through because I didn't want to spoil myself, and I didn't know how much he would say or not say, and usually, Spectrum Pulse doesn't, the one that does the unscripted movie thing, I wouldn't call it a review, really, even though he uses that label, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. What we're doing right now isn't a review, but on my Near Ear the Snitch video, every comment so far says great review. So it's it's a losing battle. But anyway, so the deal is that in his video he was talking about objectivism and Atlas Shrugged and basically how there's this all these hot takes about Brad Bird and objectivism and how it's all about this merit-based society, because what Ayn Rand, I believe, is the name of the author that wrote Atlas Shrugged. I haven't read Atlas Shrugged. It's something I want to read at some point because of how wrong apparently it is. So it'll be interesting. So I might read it at some point. But anyway, so the whole deal is that objectivism is basically hey, people that are powerful are just inherently better people, and they got there for a reason because they're better at what they're doing, and it's not through any other aspect. And the problem with that is that things like societal privilege exist. So, in a true meritocracy, in a true merit-based society, everyone would be on the same playing field. The problem is that isn't just not the case. It's just not how it works. In America, in anywhere, there's always disadvantages. There's always things that happen to people that make them either lucky or unlucky or whatever. And that's just the way it is. It's not like when you're born, every kid is in the same economic standing. That's not how it works. Usually you get something from your parents. You have privilege because of the privilege your parents give you, right? Or something like that. Or maybe other factors that are beyond your control play into it, like race, gender, hair color, hair color less, or at least sexuality. I think basically things that are beyond your control that lead to preconceived notions about you that are imposed on you either by society or other people, right? So that's not great. So the whole thing with The Incredibles 1 that people were talking about is that because Syndrome's whole plan is that we're gonna give everyone superpowers, because when everyone's super, no one is. And it's the interesting thing about that is so he's just giving people powers. Is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? It's a bad thing because earlier in the movie, Syndrome was a jerk. And so you were supposed to hate him because the main characters don't like him. But, giving people powers is, kind of cool. I don't know. So is Syndrome really a bad guy? Or is he just jealous and, using that jealous... It's, hard to say. So I think that's an interesting conversation to have. Does that mean Brad Bird is an objectivist? No. Right? Because there's an overwhelming amount of evidence in the movie that showcases the fact that that's not what he's going for. And Brad Bird himself has said that he's not an objectivist and that's not what he was going for. And I don't think he's going to deny that, because objectivism isn't inherently viewed as a bad thing. It's just that, a philosophy professor might slap you across the face. Apparently. I never took a philosophy class. It was just not a topic one, I couldn't get into the classes, but two, I don't think I would enjoy them as much. But anyway, whatever. So point is, Incredibles 2 comes out, and there's a notable amount of similarities to the first movie, and it's sort of like a parallel in the first movie in that Incredibles 1 was about Bob, Mr. Incredible, going on and being a superhero, and then basically the rest of the family having to go and save his ass, basically, because he goes into the island and Syndrome catches him and all that stuff, right? So basically, the sequel, come on, focus, we're getting there. The sequel is basically that, but with Helen, with Elastigirl, because you have Bob Odenkirk's character, right, coming in being like, we gotta start with Elastigirl because it's the least amount of collateral damage, and then Mr. Incredible's like, oh, come on, there, big problems, the big solutions, it's stereotypical man stuff. Stereotypical man stuff, not saying all men are like that. But, stereotypes are great. So basically, the whole deal is Elastigirl going and saving the day, but then she eventually encounters this new enemy called Screenslaver, and then some antics ensue. So, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna say, hey, the characters are great. I thought Mr. Incredible's voice acting sounded a bit off from the first movie, but that could just be because the actor that plays him is older now. Everyone else sounded great, even if the kids' voices are different, because I'm pretty sure they are. So that's all good. I thought the action was fantastic. I liked how there were some callbacks to the first movie. There's one scene where, if you know, at the end of the first Incredibles, where Helen and Bob, Helen's like, where Bob's like, push the button, and Helen's like, not yet! And Bob's like, push the button, not yet! The same thing happens in this movie, but with Violet and Dash, so that's like a cool, like, family carrying on thing. So that was really cool. I thought everyone was great. Like, there wasn't any major issues with it. I thought a lot of things played out really well. I really enjoyed it. I saw it in 3D, and the 3D was really good, which surprised me. So, just a lot of really good stuff. Now, shut off the video if you haven't seen the movie or don't want to see the movie, because now I'm going to talk more stuff and then go back to what I was saying before, because I like processing ideas that might turn into full-length videos. So what happens is the Screenslaver doesn't actually exist. The Screenslaver is a character made by Bob Odenkirk's assistant, who Helen, like, heavily relates with earlier in the movie. And the whole deal is that Bob Odenkirk's dad is, like, died because he tried to call the supers and the supers didn't come, where his sister, who's the assistant or whatever, is like, no, they should have just saved themselves. They should have done things independently and been them, right? And they shouldn't have relied on superheroes to do their stuff for them, because people are lazy. And that's what her argument was. She was like, no, people should try. Like, people should do their stuff and not have to rely on people that are inherently or genetically superior to them to do things. And I'm like, and once again, like Syndrome, the interesting thing about this is that this is a character where it's like, you know what, I don't totally disagree with you. And the only reason we hate you is because of the means with which you're making your argument. You're trying to sabotage this whole situation that your brother's doing, and you're trying to, like, kill people in the process, right? So that's the only reason why we don't like you as a character. But the arguments that you're making are somewhat sound. And that's what's interesting. There's this whole ambiguity to everything that goes on in both of these movies with regards to should superheroes be legal or not. Now, obviously, the whole argument by the end of the movie, they kind of twist it in this equal rights thing. But the problem with that is, and this kind of carries back into objectivism, this is a world where there are people that are just inherently superior to other people. This isn't a societal thing, right? This isn't like white privilege or male privilege, right? This is like genetically these people have superpowers, right? So so then this brings up a few questions. In this world, right, does that mean that superheroes are inherently better at things than other people? Does the fact that they have superpowers mean that they're not human too? Do they have weaknesses in other areas? Because I would argue, and I think one of the things that I kind of advocate for and believe in is that everyone has the same potential. It's just usually either themselves or outside factors that prevent them from reaching that potential. Meaning that everyone on the planet, has the potential with major diseases aside, like, everyone has the potential to be a world leader or CEO of a corporation or anything like that, or you have influence or be a celebrity, right? Everyone has that capability, but the problem is most people don't reach it, and the reasons why is because it's a lot of luck to get there, right? And so the thing is that like people go and worship like celebrities and CEOs and call them brilliant people and so influential and important, when in reality, like, they're not any better people than we are. Like, I'm here applying for jobs. I just got out of college and I'm figuring my life out, right? But I'm not any less important or less capable than the Elon Musks of the world, right? And just because I'm saying that doesn't make me smarter than the Elon Musks of the world either. Hell no, right? But right now, Elon Musk is probably smarter than me because he's put more time into learning things, right, than I have, where I focus my efforts on more creative efforts, right? So we have the same brain power. Chemically, we're the same people, right? Well, I mean, like, genetically, there's some genetic differences. Not everyone can grow a beard. Not everyone has brown hair. Not everyone has green eyes. Not everyone likes wearing button-ups. But the point is that in terms of being human beings, we're all the same person. So we're all capable of achieving the same things. It's just usually we don't. So that's the philosophy I subscribe to, right? Is that we're all capable of reaching the same thing, but it isn't just us that it isn't just ourselves, basically, that lead us from going there, right? Usually there's some outside factors that go into play as to whether that potential is fully realized. And for most people, it's not. That's my philosophy. So when I view that philosophy and frame it against the Incredibles, right? See how I'm going into this, and this could actually become like a full-on video on the main channel, and I guarantee there's more to this that I'm not touching on. But if I take that philosophy and apply it to the Incredibles, then that begs a lot of questions for that world, right? What does it mean to be a superhero? Can anyone be a superhero? Because Syndrome thought they could, and then the other thing is that, like, when she got arrested at the end, she was like, just because you saved me doesn't make you a better person than I am. And I'm like, she's not wrong. Like, she's straight up not wrong. And then Elastigirl's like, yeah, but you're alive, so, And like, yeah, she probably made the morally right decision, and that's what her character would do, right? But it's just interesting because it's like, you find yourself, as you're watching these movies, growing sympathetic for these villains. And, like, the villains aren't necessarily wrong. And I find that very interesting why, when writing these movies, Brad Bird and other people that have worked on the writing for these movies decided to make villains that you can very easily side with if their actions, their way they applied that philosophy, right, wasn't so ridiculous. Like, Syndrome's plan was to send the Omnidroid to kill people, and then he saves them with his technology and then sells it to people, right? Like, you're killing people, dude. And same thing with her. She's like, let's send a ship and destroy, like, the city and kill a bunch of people and blame it on superheroes. Like, something happened there where the greater good or whatever. It's like, you're making a point because you're bitter, So that aspect of her character, I'm like, no, I don't like that part of your character. But your philosophy, I don't fully hate it. So there's this weird ambiguity to it, and I find that very, very interesting. So I wanted to talk about that a bit here, and I have. So hopefully you didn't see the whole thing. And if you haven't seen the movie, so I hope that everyone that's watched this far has in fact seen the movie. Yeah. Now, some people have been watching these more recently. I mean, not everyone, because I talk about whatever the hell I want. But I do want to, I'm going to try and take time out of these videos at the end. Just be like, hey, I have a main channel. It's MML's Commentaries. It's youtube.com/MML's Commentaries, like the letter MMLS Commentaries. So go there and check it out, because it's thoughts like these, except scripted and argued better. So go check that out, because there might be cards up on the screen, but I can't apply cards from my mobile device. It's one of the dumbest things. They have this whole thing where they're like, you can add cards and people can use them on their mobile devices. But I'm like, but I can't actually add those cards on my mobile device. And the whole point of like, oh, YouTube Capture app, and now the YouTube Capture app built into YouTube, so you can just do it on your phone, right? But you can't add cards on there. You can't even like really do much of anything with the videos. Like, it's like, come on. Like, it's such no. YouTube fixed that. Anyway, I'm gonna go now.